Okay, we'll obviously have to start with FEMA, a catastrophic disaster of I won't say government made in the hurricane sense, but certainly government exacerbated in the dereliction of duty sense. The hurricane came and caused a massive, catastrophic damage. As we saw from Warren Smith, houses swept up and disappeared. Whether or not people have any or adequate insurance, it's a disaster. Apparently, the Republicans voted against additional financing to FEMA this year. And so now they've got nothing to complain about because FEMA says they're out of money after having squandered nearly $1 billion on illegal immigrants, which is another government man-made federal emergency of their own doing. I mean, of all the issues, take us through this. First of all, I guess FEMA, there's the DHS, there's who's in charge of this. I mean, do you want to flesh out like how negligent the government is and how disgraceful it is at the time where their negligence is literally killing people? They're off giving hundreds of millions and billions to foreign countries and foreign proxy wars.
Yeah, FEMA is the subject of many conspiracy theories because of their odd history. So it's not always been known as the Federal Emergency Management Agency. It's had a bunch of different names, and it's been located in a bunch of different agencies within different cabinet secretaries over the years. It didn't get the name of FEMA itself until 1979 by President Carter. Even then, it went through multiple transformations. It cites as its legal authority 3 or 4 main statutes, but it cites another 60 or 70 as giving it some authority because it's all related to emergency powers. Now, the real history of FEMA and the reason why they've been the subject of so many conspiracy theories, FEMA's predecessor existence, and for a large part of its existence, its biggest part of its budget was classified. To give you an idea, the Dr. Strangelove reference to the underground bunker where everybody's going to live, where one general's character is okay with when he finds out it's going to be 5 women for every man, and that they'll need to be attractive and so forth. The actual people doing that was FEMA in its predecessor form. It was called Mount Weather in the Blue Ridge Mountains. They were the ones managing a nuclear apocalyptic fallout. A lot of your deep state types had deep FEMA ties as well. I mean, if you dig into what some of their evacuation plans were, they would have things that really smacked of eugenics and inspired that you could win a nuclear war. Many generals in the 50s and 60s believed this insanity. They're like, we think we can get 85% of the population safe. And you dig in, and they really mean 85% of the desirable population. And what they meant by that is, we probably wouldn't be able to help out the handicapped, the sick, the injured, the people that are really kind of too old, that are don't have any friends or family around. It exposed a lot of the true nature of the government's thinking, who it prioritized in saving in the case of an emergency. That's where the stories about FEMA camps come from, is that they had designed these bunker facilities to be evacuated facilities all around the country. And therefore, you got the concerns about, are they setting these up for camps for dissidents, for example? And it's all related to emergency power. So that's part of the history, is that FEMA really wasn't actually emergency-oriented, like natural disaster-oriented, in a meaningful way until the Cold War ended. And then it's been sort of a hodgepodge of political favors. The people that get it are not put in those positions because they're actually very competent or capable.
I'm Googling as you're talking whether or not the $750 amount is a loan that has to be repaid. I see something about a grant, FEMA grants not having to be repaid, and I don't know if that $750 is a grant or another form of payment.
In its current form, you have the Stafford Act. For a while, they put it in under Homeland Security. And then after the disaster of Katrina, they transitioned it out of the Department of Homeland Security, and they've sort of moved it around and have purportedly tried to make it more centered around actual domestic emergencies. The Biden administration chose to use it primarily as a immigration tool. Like, for example, there was some media people lying this morning to Senator Cotton and other people saying, there were no FEMA funds used to help any of the illegals or any of the migrants. And you can just go to FEMA's own website, and it describes how it's giving all this money to Cubans or Haitians or people that are refugees or people that are seeking asylum or people that have been given special status by the Biden administration to be here for 1 year. Yes, indeed, that's where all the money went. The money went to something that FEMA shouldn't even be involved in. It shows you how political this agency has long been. But the stories about them saying that they control who can give aid, they control how that aid is given, they can exclude people from certain airspace, they can exclude people from they have no such legal power. You won't find that power anywhere in any of the statutes. They are solely to assist and supplement private efforts and local efforts. They are given no authority at all to exclude local or state or private efforts at relief or remedy. They're only even supposed to be called in by an emergency declaration when there's inadequate local and state and private resources available. But they are not given any special authority of declaring a martial law effectively, of having exclusive jurisdiction over responding to any kind of crisis. Their primary role is to give money, and their second, which is grants, and their second role is to help coordinate, help supplement, help complement existing local, state, and private rescuing efforts. Their obligation is to protect civil rights and civil liberties, to not be discriminatory themselves in how they behave and handle things. The other main thing that FEMA does, aside from create funds for people, help coordinate federal resources. For example, you can enlist private contractors, you can enlist local government workers, you can enlist people from other federal agencies to help coordinate. That's all they're there to do, is to supplement and assist and coordinate and provide grants.
Funding for FEMA disaster response was diverted to support international efforts or border-related issues. Like, this is false. No money is being diverted from disaster response needs. FEMA's disaster response efforts and individual assistance is funded through the Disaster Relief Fund, which is a dedicated fund for disaster efforts. That might, I don't know if that's true or not, but I presume that's true. Disaster Relief Fund money has not been diverted to other non-disaster related efforts. Robert, why do I feel like I'm reading a freaking shell game being played by Bernie Madoff?
Because they start off with a straw man argument. No one's saying that funding for FEMA was diverted to international efforts or border issues. They're saying it was used to help immigrants. And there's no doubt about that because FEMA acknowledged it. Nobody lies more than fact checkers lie. They create a fake claim that they then rebut with a fake argument. FEMA has designated part of their disaster funds over here, so all the funds that they diverted to immigrants didn't come from the disaster funds because they diverted it before it ever got there in the first place. Ha ha, see? We proved your fact check. They don't even realize that everybody knows they're lying, that the only people who believe them are their own audience, their own crowd, their own liberal media constituency. You can go to FEMA's own site, and FEMA identifies that they're helping refugees. They're funding all these people that the Biden administration has brought in, Haitians, Cubans, asylum seekers, refugee seekers, etc. That all that relocation that happened in places like Springfield, Ohio, is being funded by the Biden administration through congressionally authorized resources to FEMA.
What's amazing thing is they make up the lie, they fact check the lie, and then in separate articles from propaganda media, they have to acknowledge the lie. Mayorkas warns of low funds for hurricane relief after FEMA spends $690 million on migrant crisis. And their liar of an answer is going to be, well, we didn't spend that $700 million from the disaster relief fund. We spent that from the aggregate budget. So therefore, when we say we didn't take it from this pot, we took it from this pot, but now we don't have any money left for you guys. So it wasn't a lie. It wasn't diverted to international border, whatever the hell they call it.
I mean, it would be called embezzlement if you did it anywhere else. That's what they've done. They've embezzled funds meant by Congress to be available for disasters and gave it to people who are not even American. Harris announced during the middle of all this that she was going to send a bunch of money, over $100 million, to the country of Lebanon, while the Biden administration and the Harris administration are still not helping out there in North Carolina.
Can you imagine she tweeted this out yesterday? The people of Lebanon are facing an increasingly dire humanitarian situation. I am concerned about the security and well-being of civilians suffering in Lebanon and will continue working to help meet the needs of the civilians there. To that end, the United States will provide nearly $157 million in additional assistance to the people of Lebanon for essential needs such as food, shelter. It can't be an accident that she does this while people are literally dying in North Carolina. This additional support brings the total of assistance to over the last year to $385 million to support them for the consequences of the $8 billion in foreign aid to Israel, plus the $4 billion or whatever goes to the Palestinian side. I swore last night. I said, fuck you, North Carolina, Kamala Harris. Fact check. She didn't actually say that. It cannot be an accident that she would do that at that time with that wording. They're struggling for shelter, food, etc. and here's 150 million, but $750 and you'll get more of it later.
Well, you have David Axelrod admitting that from a Democratic perspective, the people that are impacted by this, that are democratically aligned voters around Asheville, they have confidence will find a way to vote, while they believe the very Republican-leaning rural voters won't. It's not just diversion of American money to foreign sources and to immigrants. It's politically motivated disaster response. And if this was Trump, it'd be news 24/7 on every major news broadcast station. Contrast the media's coverage of Katrina with the coverage of this hurricane. It's incredible. It's just like the Maui coverage that disappeared once Democrats did such a shoddy job of responding to it.
The agency has spent $690.9 million this year to, quote, enable non-federal entities to offset allowable costs incurred for services associated with non-citizen migrant arrivals in their communities, end quote. According to FEMA's fiscal 2024 awards. Texas governor slammed. They tell you it's not happening, but it didn't come out of the disaster relief fund. It just came out of the aggregate budget.
They tell these things that are just classic lies. That they're in the name of fact checking, they're the biggest liars on the planet. And again, when they've been sued, courts have acknowledged this by saying they're not actually stating facts or checking facts. That's why they've been immune from suit, because they said nobody reasonable would interpret these people as actually engaged in what they say they're engaged in. Anybody out there that FEMA has no legal authority to tell you can't try to help the people of North Carolina. So don't let any false statements or claims that are coming out concerning that deter you from helping out in North Carolina. Elon Musk is directly assisting in North Carolina. Dr. Phil is directly assisting in North Carolina. Range and Eastern Tennessee, up in the Appalachian part. It didn't hit much in Chattanooga, my hometown. That's in the southeast corner. It was much more in the mountains, up in the northeastern, the Smoky Mountains. I mean, the irony of all this, not far away from there, is the original foundation of FEMA. It's the Blue Ridge Mountains, where they had that, I think, Mount Weather or whatever it was called, which was the original Dr. Strangelove bunker. So if anybody should have been prepared to handle that region, it should have been FEMA. But it's because they're not there because they've been converted into an immigration assistance agency.
A disaster of the government's making that they're now tending to with taxpayer dollars. And by the way, it's gone up to over 74,781. Let's just refresh one more time. 74,781. I gave everybody the link there. And I was assured by Jacob Wells the money's going to be divvied up among charities that are on the ground, and it's going to go directly to the people in need and not be seized by or diverted by FEMA et al.